Hello, welcome back. I'm Josh Ellingson. You're in my studio. I've shown you how to make Pepper's Ghost illusions before using like an old cassette tape cover, or you can even use a CD case like this one. But sometimes you want to use a different kind of container, like maybe you want to put a Pepper's Ghost in a chemistry flask or a jar, or maybe even something big, like you want to use a great big bell jar. Today we're going to look at the different kind of containers that you can put a Pepper's Ghost inside of, and then also the kind of reflectors that work best for those containers. So let's do it. I should talk a little bit about what a Pepper's Ghost is. People have asked me, how do you project into your container to make a Pepper's Ghost? And I think it's important to understand that that's not how it works, that it's not a projection, it's a reflection. So to show you that, I'm going to turn on my projector here, move this out of the way. I got a projection of a goldfish here, and it has to be just the right focal length and angle to really produce a good fish, okay? But this is opaque, and we can't see through it, so that's not really helping the illusion, right? So if I use a piece of clear plastic and do the same thing, super reflective, and again, it has to be at just the right length and angle, so that's not the best way to do it. A better way to make a Pepper's Ghost is with a reflection. So if I move this piece of plastic, I can reflect the goldfish in space better. Just have it in your mind that it's more like a mirror than a projection movie screen. So in this container, I have a piece of plastic at an angle pointed down, and when I put it on top here like this, we get a reflection of the fish in the container, and that's why it's doing its thing. Okay, with that in mind, let's take a look at the different kind of materials that you can use to make one of these. First, find out what kind of screen you have and then go from there. Remember, it's not a projection, so the image doesn't get bigger if you move the thing further back in space. It's always a one-to-one relationship. So if you have a phone, this is the maximum size of your Pepper's Ghost. So maybe something like this would work. Even that would work. If you've got something bigger, like an iPad or an iPad mini, you can probably move up to something just like a little bigger that covers more area. An iPad Pro will get you even a bigger Pepper's Ghost still. I've found that tall glass things don't really work so well. Because the reflector is at a 45-degree angle, the reflection is going to stop in this bottom portion, and this whole area up top is going to be wasted. Things with flat bottoms like this flask work really well. If your container is wider in the middle than it is on the opening on the bottom, the ring on the bottom might show up in the reflection. You can see the ring surrounding the fish is actually the opening of the bottom of this container. Something like this with a wider bottom might be a better option. If you're using a rectangular container, the angle of your reflector will stop at the back edge of the container. The reflection actually stops here. In person, it will appear as though the fish is kind of behind the box instead of inside the box. That's why I prefer using round containers, because in this container, the reflector stops about 3/4 into the container, and there's some space behind it, so when you see it in person, it really feels like the object is floating inside the container. Boxes are okay, but you don't get as much depth. So whatever kind of container you use, just make sure that they're clean and that you have permission to use them. And now let's look at some different materials that you can put inside these containers. Traditionally, Pepper's Ghosts were reflected in glass on a stage in a big old box. I don't do that. I don't like cutting myself, and I don't like making a big mess. So I don't use glass. I use different kinds of plastic film. The cheapest and easiest kind of plastic film to use is transparency film. You can get these in packs of, 100 sheets, but it cuts really easily with scissors, and it's good for small things because you can roll it up. Maybe you could get away with a really thin polycarbonate, but transparency film works great for especially small things like this. So I made a template that should fit in there just fine. I'll roll it up and shove it in there. I keep a pair of aquarium tweezers around to help move it around while it's inside the flask. And there it is. Another readily available plastic is poster frame plastic. This is acrylic. It's very rigid. It's just a little trickier to cut. With this kind of plastic, I don't recommend using scissors. It doesn't leave a nice clean edge. It's better to use a box cutter to score it and then break away the excess plastic. Okay, now I'll just break away these areas around the oval. And I've already got a problem here. I guess I didn't score it deep enough, and I've already broken the lens. I think I can save this just by flattening up this edge a bit. It doesn't need to be round all the way around. Score that. So as you can see, it's a bit difficult to work with, but it is a nice rigid material. Let's see how it fits. Okay, it ended up working out alright with that flat bottom area, and I think that's a passable fish. I buy huge sheets of polycarbonate at Tap Plastics in San Francisco. It comes in different weights. This is more rigid and this is more floppy. Yeah, because they come in different thicknesses, you can choose from different ranges of things to put them in. What I like to do usually is start with a piece like this just to make sure I'm getting the right shape. Once I got the right shape, I'll trace it onto some polycarbonate and then cut that out. Polycarbonate is much easier to cut, and you can use scissors. I'm going to give myself a little bit more room on top here, because from the other attempts it seemed like I needed more space on the top. Sits in there pretty good. I like to go in and check and make sure that the plastic is touching the glass so that there's not a gap in between. Yeah, it looks pretty good. Okay. Well, there you have it. Hopefully that gives you an idea of some materials that you can use to put your own Pepper's Ghost illusion together. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters. I couldn't do it without you. And stay tuned for the next one, okay? Catch you next time.